Good to go.
Okay, cool. Hi. Next Wave is grateful to the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, on whose unceded country this festival and this meeting takes place. We extend our deepest respects to all elders, past, present and emerging. For 60,000 years, generations of Kulin peoples have carried a cultural and creative continuum which is intimately connected to the people, lands and waters of Melbourne. It is with this spirit we gather to talk, sing, write, share and celebrate in this place that always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hello and welcome to the Next Wave 2020 Festival Artist Information Session. Thanks so much for coming, and excited to meet you all for a drink in the foyer afterwards. We're just going to run through some information relating to the application process. We'll open it up to you guys for questions at the end. There are multiple opportunities for you to talk to us over the course of the next few weeks. Feel free to call our office, send us an email. I'm going to be traveling around the country meeting artists, so if you know friends in other states who you think would benefit from attending a similar information session, or you think would like to talk to me, please put them in touch as well. This is a national call out and we want to make sure that all artists have the opportunity to engage with Next Wave. My name is Rosalind Helper. I'm the director of Next Wave.
Hi, so I'm Erica McKelman. I'm a Ballad Noongar woman, thinking about Boonwurrung people for some reason. I'm the creative producer at Next Wave, and I'll also be doing a bit of image description for anybody who is blind or is sight impaired or just doesn't know the context of what they're looking at. So I'll pop back in and talk about this slide in a minute.
We also have our amazing Next Wave staff present in the audience tonight. They'll also be hanging around afterwards, so flag one down if you want to have a chat about anything as well. So let's kick off. Oh, do you want to describe the slide?
Yeah, can we just go back to the previous slide, please? Okay, so what we're looking at here is The Second Woman by Nat Randall. So, a blonde woman in a red dress in a red room stands to pour a takeaway food container of noodles onto a male participant's head. Nat performed one scene repeatedly over a 24-hour period with 100 different men in this work. The title, The Second Woman, is in neon on the back wall of the room. And for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to see this performance, The Second Woman was a Next Wave work which premiered in Next Wave 2016. And since it premiered in May 2016, it has travelled around the country. It has been given representation by Performing Lines, which is an international touring company that's got a fantastic reputation and links within Australia and outside. And it has also been performed overseas, including in Taiwan, where a local Taiwanese actress actually took over Nat's role, and they performed it in Mandarin. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk a little bit about who Next Wave is. Does anybody have who has never been to a Next Wave festival? All right, so we've got a couple of people here. So does anybody have any ideas of what Next Wave is? Like, what would you say Next Wave is? Any brave people want to shout out? Okay, I'll do it for you then. All right, so we have been around for quite a while. We're 35 this year. We were established in 1984 as a youth festival, and it was about fostering creativity and experimentation, and we still do that today. We're about learning, and we're also a festival, a development organisation, and we're also a community of peers. We have our former Next Wavers come in to work with the new Next Wavers as they walk towards the next festival with us. And some of those artists include Patricia Puccini, who was Next Wave Festival 1994, Megan Cope, who was Next Wave 2014, Abdul Abdallah and Rita Heppy, Atlanta Eek, Genoa Gala, and Thomas E.S. Kelly, who also, they've gone on to amazing careers within performing and visual arts as well too. Some other projects that have gone on to international touring and acclaim, including The Second Woman, has also been one called Dash Hand UN, which you might have seen. It was sausage dogs who were actually forming a UN assembly on the lawn at the at Melbourne Museum in the Carlton Gardens out the front, and that's gone as far away as Canada and still has some circulation as well too. And so does Fun Run by Tristan Meacham, which was also the 2010 festival that was just recently presented again in Taiwan. It's the show that just will not die. So in terms of us, what we're really about is creating a community of artists every 2 years, fostering work and working with you to create your most ambitious idea and then show it to the world in Melbourne and also to the industry as well. And from that point, that's a springboard into a larger career. So if you're really ready to step up to that point and head off into a broader part of your artistic practice and be supported and work with us to do that, then Next Wave's the place for you.
As well, Next Wave has a history of working with artists with disability, and we're committed to providing the support needed for all artists to participate in our programs and our festival. There will be an additional information session at Arts Access Victoria on the 5th of February, and you can book online at nextwave.org.au if that's something that would be helpful. We continually are identifying and removing barriers, and this is important to us, and we're strong believers that accessible work is an opportunity for all artists. Thanks, Bonnie, for this. An accessible festival is a better festival. Next Wave helps artists make their work accessible by connecting them with services, communities, and workshops. So in the past, we've worked with and continue to work with Arts Access Victoria, Auslan Stage Left, Deaf Arts Network, Magic Hands, and Description Victoria, and more. I might read one of the quotes from this slide. I was, in small and subtle ways, being told that my voice and my perspective mattered. My opinions on access were being turned into action. My limitations were being listened to and validated with compassion. My problems were being met with solutions, eagerly, not begrudgingly. It's from a Next Wave 2018 festival artist.
Yeah, and another quote that we really liked from the feedback that some of the artists gave us was, learning about access and how to integrate it into the work from inception meant that I could make realistic, exciting and creative decisions pertaining to accessibility. I've learned how exciting and vital it is to incorporate access within the body of the work. It helped solve creative binds and cracked open my work to richer possibilities. Geez, our artists write well. So the image that we've just gotten up here is from a Next Wave work from 2018. So this was the Bureau of Meteor Anxiety by Alex Tate and Olivia Tartaglia. They were Kickstart artists from WA. A person in black pants and a cream jumper stands in a stark white room wearing a pair of VR goggles that are wired to the ceiling. On the floor is a circle of gum leaves around a green camping chair. The person is outstretching their arms towards a plastic tree trunk to the left wall of the room. So this was also presented at Blindside in City of Melbourne in the Nicholas Building for Next Wave 2018, and these artists worked with us for about 18 months to realise this incredible work. We encouraged artists to make their work sustainable, and we'll work with you to create sustainable solutions within your work as well before actually needing to retroactively import them in. We've worked with experts who've authored such publications as Greening the Arts to give you actual practical tools to make sure that your art is contributing towards sustainability rather than environmental degradation. We don't expect you to save the entire planet with one production, but we want to give you the tools so that you're able to contribute to a solution rather than a problem in the process of developing and presenting your work.
So, Next Wave Festival, a government of artists. In this world, there are values, beliefs, experiences and dreams that are not discussed or validated in our dominant discourses. Artists are often charged with the role of stepping in to redress these imbalances, to demonstrate diverse realities and to communicate the personal, social, moral, political, environmental and economic conditions that shape us. Artists do this not just by creatively proposing alternatives and not just by dreaming of utopias, but by demonstrating through artistic expression how we can live in this world today. Next Wave Festival 2020, a government of artists, is a mass coming together of these creative efforts and ideas. A giant critical party that considers how we ignite and lead movements for change through new and radical forms of artistic expression and togetherness. In short, we are inviting you to form a government. We are inviting you to set the agenda for the festival with your artistic proposal. We are inviting you, our next great artists, to propose your most important critical ideas that represent your context. We're inviting you to propose the ideas, conversations, feelings, and experiences that matter to you. Your work, by no means, has to be about governments. The idea of a government is a framework, a provocation, an invitation for you to think about the context of your work, to consider what it means to be making art, and to be making art now. What do you want to say? Who do you want to speak to? How is your work contributing to the conversations of our time? The festival call-out is open to artists from anywhere in Australia, working in any art form. You could be a theatre maker, a visual artist, a musician or a composer, a dancer or a choreographer, a filmmaker, a writer, a publisher, a producer, a curator, a philosopher, a poet, a web developer, an architect. I wrote lots of art things down. You could be any of these things. You could be none of those things. You could fit between art forms, and we especially want to hear from you. Essentially, Next Wave's doors are open. We want to hear from you. You can visit our website. You can give us a call. You can send us an email. Talk to us tonight. We want to hear your ideas, to start a conversation and to work with you towards creating your most ambitious artistic project. Together, these works will form Next Wave 2020, a government of artists.
My turn. All right, so this image shows 3 dancers from Tari Sansbury's Miwi, a dance work from Next Wave Festival 2018 that premiered at the Northcote Town Hall. They are wearing white and are on a dark stage backlit. They sit, crouch, and stand in front of one another in height order facing us. So this work was developed through our development programs and premiered in the festival in 2018 as well. It is being programmed to go on to Adelaide to perform, I think, in Vital Statistics. But this is a really, really important development for this work because Tari is actually a Nunanjeri Gunner artist, so her mob is from Adelaide, and this work is actually directly connected to her grandmother's country. So it's a wonderful opportunity also for not just this First Nations artist to be recognised for their extraordinary work, but it's also opened a door to make sure that cultural protocol is fulfilled and the work returns back to its homeland.
So who are you? I have some answers. I hope you have some answers. You could be a solo artist, you're working in a duo, working in a collective. It doesn't matter, we want to hear from you. You are an emerging or early career artist. Now this, in our books, is not defined by age. That's just whatever you want it to mean. I think the important thing to consider in your application is what you want to get out of Next Wave, what it's an opportunity for you to learn, and for you to communicate that in your application to us is what will help us know what we can provide for you and how to tailor our support to you in the early stages of your career. And I mentioned already, but you can be any type of artist. We're not limited by art form, and that's a very exciting thing about Next Wave. As an artist who takes part in the festival, you're surrounded by other artists from different disciplines, and the idea of our learning programs that Eric will speak to shortly is that it's an opportunity for you to learn from each other and to build a shared dialogue moving into the festival to talk about your work and to support each other. Your idea, we're looking for experimentation, and that can be within your art form. It can be pushing ideas and themes and concepts in new directions. We want rigour, we want thoughtfulness and ambition. We want you to tell us what art can be and where it can happen, and we don't want you to be bound by what you've seen before. I mean, by all means, look to our website, look to our past programs, draw inspiration, develop your context in the application, but please go, shoot for the stars. This is an opportunity to give us your biggest, most ambitious idea.
Oh, do I say this bit too? Yeah, I can talk about that if you want. All right, so you're probably wanting brass tacks. You want to know what you get out of this opportunity. So let's talk about that, because I'm a producer. All right, so here's what we provide. Yes, there are two streams. There is Kickstart, which we know and love, and I'll talk to you about that one later, and there is Next Wave X, which is another program. They actually run in tandem. There's not a huge difference between either of them, and each gets exactly the same thing. They just have a slightly different outcome. So you get a development and a presentation opportunity through either Next Wave X or Kickstart. So you have the opportunity to develop your work with us, participate in our 2 intensive labs that we'll be running throughout 2019 to help develop your work and build your community of artists, and also look really deeply at why you're doing what you're doing and how you want to present that to an audience. You'll get up to $5,000 towards your project. So that's just a seed starter. What you also get to help you along the journey of making your work is participation in the labs. We can pay for flights and accommodation for one person from interstate if you're an interstate partnership. So if you say your project's from WA and you're a duo, we can pay flights and accommodation for one of you to get over to either Melbourne or Sydney, which is where the labs will take place. It's up to you to figure out how to get the cash for the second person, and they're absolutely welcome. They're integral to the work. You get, this is the best thing, but I'm a bit biased because I used to be one, a dedicated Next Wave associate producer. So an associate producer is a person who works with you right from when you're curated in through your entire project until the end of the festival. They are there to work with you to help with creative feedback. They are there to help you with your grant drafts. They are there to help you with your project planning. They are there to help you navigate what needs to be done in order to get a work realised within a festival context, because we'll be asking you for things like marketing materials, pictures, bios, press releases, opportunities to find interviews to market your work. We'll take you through all of that as well with your associate producer. That person will handle 8 other projects-ish. But hopefully they will kind of become your confidant, best friend, co-pilot, creative partner, and we've also seen some amazing friendships come out of that particular system as well too. You'll also get further tailored support, so the more that you work with us, we will try the best that we can using our networks to get you things like finance, like venues, development spots, opportunities to talk about your work, anything really. If you keep the conversation going through the 18 months, then you will get the most out of the brains trust and the networks that you've got here at Next Wave. Sometimes it can be really, really hard approaching arts organisations or the media or other people who give you things that you need. This is where Next Wave comes in, because when we call, people usually pick up the phone, so we can do that on your behalf. And also co-commissioning and producing support from our state partners for Next Wave artists. So I'll talk about that in a little while, but Next Wave X in a nutshell is mainly for artists who are outside of Victoria, and it's to give them a little bit of extra help to develop their work, because we know it's hard to get it to Melbourne, and we also think it's very important to give people the opportunity to take their work back to their home state and present it. So we've made it an opportunity for them to do that. Cool. All right. So Kickstart. Most of you probably know about Kickstart, but I'll give you the spiel. So Kickstart is a program that started in 2001. It's got amazing alumni in it, and it's our original development program of this kind. And the reason why it's been around so long is because it works really well. So Kickstart is really, really ideal for somebody who is, or a group who is in their first 5 years of their professional practice, is really, really eager to learn more about working within the arts, getting their project up and running, and also to meet an amazing community of other artists and be influenced and also contribute to conversations and really, really dive deep into creating their first really big solo work. So in terms of its magnitude, it's kind of like you've done a couple of fringes, now you really want to punch very high. Let's help you do that. Kickstart's always had several intensives that you actually come to Melbourne or another location, all of you at the same time, to spend time with us and also friends of Next Wave, so that you can learn and develop and grow. Yeah, I think that's about it for Kickstart. Image. So the image that we've got is This is an image of Rafaela McDonald, a Kickstart artist from 2015, standing next to her abstract painting on a stand with another painting on fabric arranged underneath it, speaking to a group of people standing around the room at a Kickstart development showing. So this is a really, really good point to hit on. Doesn't matter if you're Kickstart or Next Wave X. Part of the deal is that you've got to give us a work in progress showing if you're a performing artist, or if you're a visual artist and a studio visit is more your jam, then we need to have that. And that's something that you work with us and your associate producer to present in your home city. So we'll come to your city and sit down with you and talk about your work and see how it's progressing. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're really, really keen to become part of the system. There will be a moment where you need to show what you're up to about halfway through. Next Wave X. All right, so Next Wave X, this is the co-commissioning model. We do have 2 Victorian partners, Punctum Inc. for anybody who's a regional artist, and we're also working with Liquid Architecture again. We've extended our Next Wave X family, so there is now 1 guaranteed Northern Territory opportunity for an NT artist with Darwin Festival. There is now 2 guaranteed Queensland spots for 2 Queensland artists, and they'll partner with Bleach or with Metro Arts. PICA, Perth Institute of Contemporary Arts, is coming back to work with us to get a WA-based artist into Next Wave as well. Our friends at Vital Statistics and Ace Open in South Australia will be working with us to get 2 South Australian artists as part of the program. And then also we've got another new friend in Campbelltown Arts Centre, so that's for anybody who's based in Western Sydney who wants to partner up with Campbelltown and Next Wave to develop their work. And finally, we haven't left the Tasmanians out this time. We're really excited to say that we've partnered with Situate Art and Festivals, who is based at Salamanca Arts Centre, so there absolutely is a spot for a Tasmanian as well too. So this means that this will be a really diverse festival, and it's really, really great because it is about the next generation of Australian art. So if you're a local Melbourne-based artist and you're part of this program, get ready to meet some amazing new friends from different places. There's some fantastic art out there beyond the Ring Road. It's true, I've seen it. But yes, functionally, Next Wave X gets exactly the same thing as Kickstart. $5,000, an associate producer. You need to present halfway through an outcome showing of some sort. The only difference really is that you've got some extra home-based support, and you've also got the opportunity to take your work back to your home state where your audience and your friends and your mum and your loved ones is, so that you can show them what you've been doing for 18 months, and I think that's really, really important. So, image slide. So what we have here is Joshua Pether, who was Next Wave X Perth Institute of Contemporary Art, performing Jupiter Orbiting at Next Wave Festival in 2018. Joshua Pether wears a white morph bodysuit lifted up to expose his face. He crouches behind a table with Lego and films the Lego closely using a GoPro camera. And another great thing about Josh's work, as extraordinary as it was that it just opened in New York about 2 weeks ago at Performance Space New York. So from premiering in May in 2018, he was in New York in January 2019. And I can tell you he was a sellout. I couldn't even get a ticket and I was right there. So that's how far a Next Wave work can go so quickly if it really is an extraordinary piece of art as well too.
I will just clarify. We are throwing a lot of information at you, I understand. In terms of your application, all artists will be eligible, will be considered for both Next Wave X and Kickstart. You don't have to worry yourselves about whether you're applying for one or the other program or whether you're just applying to be a festival artist. Our aim this year, unlike other years, is to have all of the artists in the festival present at both lab intensives. So yeah, just to clarify, we're tailoring the support to you based on what you tell us in your application, so you don't need to worry about nominating a particular support stream. You're automatically eligible for all of it. So that's just to keep in mind. Here are some important dates we will run through for you. Pop them in your diary. I have an iCal for the first time this year. It's controversial. So if you'd like feedback on your application, please make sure you get it to us. So you can send us your application and we will read it and provide feedback, but you have to send it to us by the 17th of Feb. No late ones. It's your first test. We will assemble a curatorial advisory committee made up of Next Wave artists, alumni, and some industry folk and Next Wave staff who will assess all applicants. We will read all applications and score them and then meet to select the final cohort of artists for the festival. The decisions will be made at the end of March. The first lab intensive will happen in the week commencing the 6th of May, so that's a compulsory one for all artists applying. So if you are unavailable, you might need to give us a call to talk about what that could mean for your application. There's a second lab intensive. Then there'll be artist showings in August and September, and then the second lab intensive towards the end of October. So that's the general trajectory of 2019, leading into the festival presentation in May 2020.
All right, so this image is of Luke Duncan King's exhibition, I Am A, for Next Wave Festival 2018. Two people face away with their back to us. They are observing a video artwork on a screen mounted on a gallery wall. The blonde person closer to the screen wears headphones. I think we've got another image slide. There we go. So this one is Angela Go, Desert Body Creep for Next Wave Festival 2016. Angela Go, a Kickstart artist from 2015, is crawling out from a blue velvet fabric tube against a dark background. Her blonde hair cascades over her face.
Oh, hot tips. So this is may seem obvious, but is really important and is what will make your application stand out above and beyond anyone who hasn't attended an information session or watched this online. So the first one is to write simply. You can't assume that people on the selection committee will be from all different art forms. If you use a jargon or a type of language that's particular to your art form, you run the risk of not having the kind of broad understanding from the curatorial committee about what your work is doing and what it's trying to achieve. So we just need you to tell us what you want to do, why you want to do it, how you're going to do it, in as simple language as you can. This is also it also helps you demonstrate that you understand what you're talking about. If we can have a clear and concise picture of what the work is by the end of reading your application, that's just something that's going to put you miles ahead of the pack.
All right, so be confident with your ideas and tell us the ideal version of your project. So this isn't about bragging or overinflating what your project is about. This is about being direct and clear with your language, but it's also about minding what your mindset is when you're trying to communicate to us about your project. So I notice a lot of emerging artists don't want to overstep the mark or back themselves into a corner saying they're going to do something that they're not confident that they're going to do, which means you need to go back to point one, interrogate why you're doing it. It's about saying, instead of I hope to, it's about saying we will. This will be best presented in. These humans will be part of the project. I am talking about this. It's also one that I see very commonly in grant applications that don't go through, so there's a bit of free grant advice for you there too. Always just put your best foot forward. Yes, this work will be happening. Yes, it's great. I know exactly what I want to do with it. I can get these things out of it. So keep that language going. Put your best foot forward.
The third tip is why. Why now? Why you? What makes this work urgent? What will your work contribute to the festival framework? Why do you need Next Wave to achieve this work? That's a really important one for us to understand how you envisage your work playing out in a festival context? Why does it have to happen here? And why does it have to happen at this festival now? I kind of just said everything.
All right, so let's think deeply about who is it for. This is actually a strangely important question that pops out really clearly in the final product, and it can be scary and intimidating. Another way of framing it is, who is your audience? And we all kind of have that moment where your mind goes blank. I guess what we're asking about is, who are you talking to? What are you trying to say to them? How are you going to get them to your project, event, show, installation? Why do you want them there, and why are they coming to see your work? Like, what's really important about it to them? And how do you know what they want, and how will you listen to them as you're developing the work? And in some ways, who isn't already in your networks as well too? This is a really great opportunity to go, I'm telling this group of people who are here this particular narrative or story. This is how I intend to get them there. This is how I intend to listen to them. And here are the parts of that network who I don't actually already have and need some help in talking to and reaching out to and developing something really rich for. So that's kind of what the Who Is It For question's about.
So yes, be real about the challenges. This is the exciting one. This is why you're applying for Next Wave. We want risky work. We want ideas that maybe other institutions don't have the guts to program. We want you to be bold and brave and tell us, and not kind of hide from the ambition of your work. A big part of that is laying out for us what you think those challenges are in making the work. As we mentioned, you're assigned a producer, you have the support of the Next Wave team. Be clear about how you want to use us to make that kind of the risk of your work and make the ambition of your work a reality. We can't know without you telling us what that's going to involve. We're not scared to read ambitious proposals. So I think the big tip here is to not shy away from being realistic with what it's going to involve.
We want to know who you are. So in terms of sort of talking about yourself as an artist or as a collective, we are interested in knowing where you went to university and what you're really intrigued by and what your major thesis may have been and what some of your career achievements are. But we're also really, really interested in who you are as an artist, because you cross the threshold at some point in your career around emerging where you stop going to people, oh, I've learned this thing and I'm really, really good at it. And this is the point where you go, as an artist, I am. I'm really, really inspired by this particular work. I've collaborated with this artist for this reason. I aspire to. This is where I'm going in my career. This is where I want to take this work. This is who I want to meet. This is who I have met. Here are some things I'm really proud of, and here's how I want to extend myself. So yeah, go beyond the normal bio, which we all do in third person, and have a bit of a talk to us about sort of what the core of you is, because you are more than just your achievements and your titles. You're also a person and a being too, and we're really interested in that person.
Again, sorry, I'm still getting used to this microphone. We also want to know what you want to learn. So this isn't, again, don't be scared of this question. This isn't, don't be scared of telling us something that you feel like maybe you're not that good at doing it. That's what we're here for. We're here to help fill those gaps across the 18-month journey towards the festival. So use the application as an opportunity, kind of in line with telling us who you are, kind of telling us what you're looking forward to learning, how you want to develop, what areas, that could be something as simple as writing a budget or a timeline. It could be something about learning how to write about yourself or how to talk about your ideas. You might be a dancer with amazing choreographic ideas, but you don't quite have the language to talk about that yet because your ideas fit so far outside of language. It could be any number of creative or practical tools or skills that you feel like coming to Next Wave could help you learn how to do them as you develop your project for the festival.
Now I've sexy one, project plan. So in the application form, you're asked to put forward a project plan. That is to help us figure out the logistics and what you need to get to make your project happen. And it also helps us gain an understanding of where you're really, really clear on how to get a project up and running and where you're going to need some of our help. That doesn't actually disqualify you from being brought into Next Wave. It just means that we get a really good idea of where your brain is logistically, where your challenges are, and which, as we've said, we're totally cool with that. Actually, challenge you out the better. So things like timelines are really, really handy in a project plan. A little bit of a breakdown of different phases of the project and what you need to achieve. A little bit of a breakdown of personnel that you need to talk to and when they need to come into the project or when you think they need to come into the project. Of course, where that Next Wave timeline happens as well too, and how us working with you interacts with how you get your project up and running. It doesn't have to be, you know, super duper producer level. We know that you're not producers. That's why you've got an associate producer. But yeah, we just need to see where you're at and where you're thinking and what you need.
In a similar vein, you will have to write a budget for us. We want you to be realistic about the costs. Your project won't be assessed on how much your idea costs. So the most important thing is for it to be a realistic indication of the support that you're going to need to produce it. An important one is to remunerate people in your project properly. We don't expect you to know at this stage the exact costs of everything that's going to be in your project, but it's up to you to do the research to find quotes or examples of past works that may have had similar costs that you can benchmark yourselves against. And it's really important at this early stage to be rigorous about how you put those costs together. Give us a call if you have questions. Yep. So, number 10, support material. You've told us what you're going to do. Now we'd like you to show us. Use past examples of your work. Key points for support material are to clearly articulate how it's relevant to your proposal. So that speaks for itself, I guess. But if you're a performance artist or a dancer or someone with a moving practice, it helps greatly if we can see video work, video documentation of your work. I know that young artists don't always have. It's always the last thing you think about when you're making a work is to document it. So. It's not a huge deal if you don't have it, but if you do, it's really important to upload a link and share it with us so that we can view it. Yeah.
And finally, respect. Some of you might know that Next Wave has been very, very conscious of our cultural and our social impact, our cultural safety. We have a lot of First Nations artist alumni. I'm a First Nations person in a senior creative position in the organisation. We've got quite a few culturally and linguistically diverse staff. We've got tons of, basically every artist is welcome. And to make sure that we have an environment where everybody is welcome without losing rigour. We're not creating a safe space that's covered in cotton wool. We want to have really dynamic, interesting conversations through art. But we want to know how everybody is conscious of showing respect and doing their research. And being aware of the impact of your work, both when you're developing it and when you're presenting it as well. So that could mean that if you are an artist that does not have a disability, but you are proposing a work that centralises people with a disability, show us how you're doing it about them, but also with them. Show us how, if you're going to work with First Nations mob, how you're going to make sure that you're adhering to protocols and showing respect and creating a space that is culturally controlled by the right people. I think, yeah, that nothing about us without us. Line is a really, really good, quick rubric to go, okay, am I telling somebody else's story? And if I want to tell somebody else's story, why? And how am I going to do this responsibly to make sure that I'm not getting it incorrect or I'm not taking space that isn't mine? In in terms of consultation, there's also the aspect of please give us a call to have a chat through your project, especially if it's one of those ones where you're not really sure if you're going down the wrong path. And especially doing that earlier in this process is the best way to do it, because you've got time to think and ask questions and talk to people and call the office again before you put your final presentation together as well. We want really, really interesting, rigorous conversations, and we want everybody at the table. We don't want to shove anything down. I think the idea of making a longer table and having a better feast is the impulse behind that, and I'm really, really looking forward to some really incredible ideas and some really amazing connections as well too in your proposals. Favourite one. All right, so this is Danielle Reynolds' work, Canine Choreography for Next Wave Festival 2018. A small white picket fence creates a square pen. There is a fake grass on the ground and a large screen behind. The screen is playing footage from a professional dog dancing show. Inside the pen is a scared whippet and a man in a blue top and board shorts standing on a boogie board. He is dressed like the man on the screen and trying to encourage the whippet to dance with him. You too can create this gold.
That's all our social media. We might throw it open to the floor for questions now. We're also live streaming on Facebook, so if there's anyone on, I'm looking at you, if there's anyone on Facebook who would like to ask a question, our amazing marketing manager Bonnie will field them, and we will relay them to the IRL crowd. So house lights coming up. Who has a question? I can't see yet.
Cool.
So
All right, we've got one here in the front row.
Okay. You mentioned seeking funding. Is part of the producer's job is to help you find out what these other fundings are, like City of Melbourne, arts projects and things like that, and actually help you figure out how to achieve
that's
that
exactly right. So the question, if you couldn't hear it, and for those playing at home, is the producer's job to help you find funding as well as to apply for it? The answer is yes, absolutely. Your producer, their job is to work with you, to understand your project, to help you research opportunities that might be relevant to that project, and to work with you to put in an application and hopefully have the chance to be supported through different channels. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Cool. Oh, yeah, up to you again.
Could you just tell me a bit more about the two lab intensives, go into detail a bit about what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk about it, Erica?
Cool. Yeah, so the question was about the two lab intensives that we're talking about as part of the program if you're part of Next Wave. So it's a slightly tweaked formula from previous years. So if you've talked to any Kickstarters, they would have attended 3 intensives last year. And we're actually bringing it down to 2, but they're now week-long. So the first one's in May, and it will be here in Melbourne. It will be an introduction to Next Wave, where the festival's heading, and also an opportunity for you to get to know your fellow artists and to introduce your work and start doing something really, really important, which is talking to each other about your work so that you can get really good at articulating it to other people, which is part of the process, so that you can get that financial help or that allyship from people who can give you resources like venues. We'll also do a bit of working with artists in Melbourne and have a bit of a tour around Melbourne looking at venues, which is particularly useful for those who are out of state, but it's also really useful for locals who may have seen institutions and not known who to talk to or how it works, or how an artist at that calibre works as well. So it also is about getting a bit of the curtain peeled back from the arts industry and giving you a bit of a backstage pass. For the second intensive, which is in late October, the reason why we don't have a date for it yet is because we're actually going to do that one in Sydney, and we are in partnership with Performance Space in Sydney, and we are wanting to do it at LiveWorks. So in the second intensive, we will talk about heading towards the festival for 2020, but there's also an opportunity to meet some amazing artists, see some fantastic experimental work, both live, visual arts and everything in between. And also get to see another city and have another tour of that as well too, and also to spend more time with your fellow artists. One thing that we probably haven't mentioned is that when we're curating, we're really interested in who you are, because we're also realising we're going to have to live with you for at least 2 weeks. So we want to know what you're like and what you're going to bring to the room, because we're going to have conversations and we want you to have an equal investment in that. And also there will be some of the onus on you as well to work with us to make an amazing lab. So tell us what you want to do and what works best for you in a really proactive way. So we're also looking for good eggs who have curiosity, who have generosity, who have something really, really interesting to bring to that those rooms when we go through those adventures together in Melbourne and Sydney. Does that help answer the question? Cool.
Questions?
Here we go. Put them up really high. Ah, there we go.
Speaking of venues, do you guys provide support in partnering with venues, finding ideal locations and venues for your work, or is
Yes,
that
we do.
something that-
So the question is, does Next Wave help artists find venues and set up those partnerships? The answer is yes. Again, in partnership with in collaboration with your producer. Maybe a helpful tip for the application process is that we don't need you to tell us, if you have an idea of exactly where you want it to be, by all means tell us. If you don't know yet, that's fine, but it is very helpful for us to know what kind of a space you're imagining your work in. So if you think you're going to need a black box theatre, tell us you think you're going to need a black box theatre. If you think you're going to make your artwork in a stairwell, tell us that, so that we can be thinking about it from the get-go and working with you to find that when the time comes.
Yep.
Like, how do I phrase this? Is it only brand new work, or can it be work that we want to take that we've presented before?
Our party line on this is, to use a governmental term, our party line is that we only present new work.
Yeah.
Work that has maybe had a development or a residency but hasn't been presented yet is absolutely okay for you to apply with. If you have presented your work, I think you need to give us a call. You need to be able to demonstrate why the Next Wave presentation of it would be perhaps radically different to how you presented it in the past. It could be a continuation of a work that you've done in the past, but we only present 100% new work as our remit. Yeah.
Cool.
Will you fund research trips, part of investigating about art will, I think, go somewhere?
So we provide all artists with up to $5,000 seed funding. You're able to use that absolutely however you want to use it. And then you'll probably need some more money. So you will work with your producer to find that money. And you can carve up the pie however way you like.
Yeah. Cool. Down the front.
Do you have an idea of how many projects you're going to be selecting for the festival?
Oh, I forgot to repeat the questions for our Facebook friends. Sorry. So the question is, how many artists are we going to select, or how many projects? We don't have a limit or a quota that we're trying to fill. Historically, we've supported around 35 projects per festival. I guess we'll be looking for around the same number, but it really depends on what comes through and what we think is going to fit together well within the context of what comes through the door. So.
I've got a question from Facebook.
Oh, a question from Facebook.
The internet asks, what kind of support is provided for projects that are not part of Kickstart or Next Wave X but are selected as part of the program, as part of the festival?
Okay, great question. Did everyone hear that? So what do artists get if they're not programmed within one of the development streams? That will be a project-specific conversation it's hard to say at this point. All artists, whether they're in a development stream or not, will work with a producer. It'll come down to kind of how we're carving up the pie on our end and what we can support. So it will be a phone conversation in those instances with those artists who we want to be in the festival that maybe don't are too advanced for the Kickstart program or aren't an interstate artist who fit into one of the partnership categories. There is space. The reason we're doing this festival call out as an all-in is so that we can capture everybody's proposals in one go and then work out from the very beginning how to support as many of them as possible. Some will go through our formal streams of support and some will be worked out on a case-by-case basis.
Up the back.
Yep. Can you be attached to multiple applications, both as a primary artist and as a non-primary artist?
You've got to be a little bit careful with that one. You can only apply for one project as a lead artist. If your best/worst case scenario, if all of your applications that you're attached to are successful, you would need to be I think you'd probably need to make a decision about which one you're going to be involved in. In the application process, I think it's okay to say you would help out on another one and have your name as a lead artist on one that you put in for yourself. But I think once the application process has been completed and the artists have been selected, you would only be able to be attached to one project leading into the festival.
And there's a practical implication for that because you can't clone yourself come May 2020.
Yes, it's a simple case of only being able to be in one place at one time. As far as I'm aware, if you have any other knowledge, please, I would like to hear it.
All right, you next.
About the feedback on the application, which I think is absolutely amazing, would you be reading through the budget and supporting documentation as well, or would it mainly be just...
Yep, so the question is, what sort of feedback are we able to provide? What would be great is if you email us with your proposal, point us to a couple of places that you think need us to have a look at. So if the budget is something you are concerned about, ask us a direct question about it. Say, do you think I'm putting enough of this expense in this expense line? Is this an appropriate place to be looking for money? If that's a specific question that you have and that you need feedback on, please just list it in your email and we'll address it. Pick your top three. Top three questions, and we'll provide feedback on those. Yeah.
You've been waiting.
Does Next Wave encourage artists to form partnerships with other institutions?
Does Next Wave encourage artists to form partnerships with other institutions?
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Possibly.
I think it's a great idea.
It's a great idea. It might be just from previous experience. It's usually best to come to us with a project first, and then if you're curated in, then we'll work with you to help make those things happen.
Yeah.
They're producing already.
Yeah.
In some cases that provides support.
I think if you can come to us with an application where you have secured support from somewhere else already, that's absolutely a strong point. The only, and I don't know your context, but the only reason I would say please call us and let us know before you apply just to check is that we haven't got an existing partnership with that institution or organisation in case there's a kind of double up in support and messaging around that. But in essence, absolutely, if you're able to go out and get yourself additional support and institutional resources, then that's an absolutely fantastic thing. That's absolutely fine. That's good to do that. Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Internet question.
Internet question. What is the difference between applying as a producer with a project or a producer individually, and if you're an individual person not attached to a work, how does that happen?
Take it away, Erica.
Yeah. All right, so the question was about the difference between applying as a producer who's independent and doesn't have a project attached to them versus a producer who actually wants to apply pitching a project. In terms of the producer as an individual, what we really want to know then is how you want to grow in the program as a person, what professional development you want to get out of being immersed in an environment with a large group of artists, what you would be interested in doing within the festival. Would you be interested in being taken on by one of the artists' projects if it worked out later down the track, which happened last festival? And what your aspirations as a producer are. Like, where can I get you? If you're an individual producer, you get a bit more hands-on detail with me, sort of working as a mentor and figuring out the best professional development opportunities for you. It's the same gig with a producer who's pitching a project, but you also need to mix that up with exactly the same thing for the artists, the writers and the curators. Let us know why the work is urgent, who's your audience and why are you bringing them to the table. Budget, project, plan is all the same as well. If you're super unsure, and I absolutely recommend anybody who's applying as a producer, give the office a call and chat to me, Erica, and we'll talk through it.
Someone choose it.
I thought there was somebody dying over here, but maybe that was answered.
Red cap.
Okay, so back onto the funding. Do you encourage or discourage commercial relationships such as hardware and software providers and other sort of corporate sponsorship, and would that interfere with the festival?
That one is totally, that one's up to you at this point. If you...
What was the question?
The question is whether artists can or should apply with potential commercial sponsorship or support. It's a great question. I think at this stage, if you think that that's something that will help your project, for example, if it's a tech partnership, please go for it and establish that relationship and put it in your application. Again, just maybe if it's a specific thing like that, just give us a call to make sure that we're not doubling up with any conversations that are already happening. But as a general rule, I'd say if you can find money, get the money. Yes.
I just wanted to find out a little bit more about the difference between Next Wave X and Kickstart programs. I was at an info session last year, and there was mention that Next Wave X was potentially for people who have either done Next Wave before or have a little more professional experience. I'm just wondering if that's still the case, or is it really aimed at people in that first?
Yep, that's a great question. So the difference between last year and this year is simply that the application process is all happening in one big soup. The Next Wave X artists are generally a little bit more established in their practice. They don't, but having said that, all of the artists are invited to the labs this year. That's the other difference, and we will be tailoring those labs to different levels of experience and knowledge. The idea of those weeks is for artists to work together to establish a kind of common dialogue or discussion or language around their work and around what that will mean as a festival. There will be, some kind of practical skills development, but also just kind of research and inspiration and lots of chatting. So that part is different. So the ex-artists are invited to come to the labs this time around, but in terms of the selection process, they may be a little bit more established because of the presentation opportunity back in their home state. We're working with our partners to select those projects, and so that is for an artist that maybe already has a little bit more experience. Yep. Yes, up the back.
Hey. Imagining that the festival has just finished and you're tweeting up the website, like, thanks Emma, thanks for coming, and then you picked a quote from an audience member that's like the huzzah quote you want to use. What might that be?
Whoa. I think that's it, actually. I think that's the quote. Oh, that's a really great question. I think it's something like, all of these brilliant, amazing Next Wave artists changed my life, and now I'm a better person, and thank goodness that all of the world's problems are solved.
We got a great one that was never say never at Next Wave.
Never say never at Next Wave. Oh, that should have been up there. That's a good one. Okay. One more question? Any others? Or maybe no more questions. Let's go get a drink. Thanks so much for coming, everyone.